And while the Biden administration is going all in for the transgender political lobby, it continues to come short when it comes to the energy crisis, even while claiming that he's, quote, using every tool to help Americans amid crisis, that he's pinning on Russia's president and not on his own policies.
My plan's going to help ease that pain today and safeguard against tomorrow. I'm open to ideas to strengthen the plan, but I will not be put off and put it on hold. It's time to deliver true long-term energy independence in America once and for all, and I'm going to continue to use every tool at my disposal to protect you from Putin's price hike.
Is President Biden really open to new ideas? Joining me now to talk about this and more is U.S. Representative Matt Rosendale, who's a member of the House Freedom Caucus, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Committee on Natural Resources. He represents Montana's at-large congressional district. Congressman Rosendale, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on today, Joseph.
Well, before we get into the energy crisis, we're going to get right there. Your take on the Transgender Day of Visibility that the Biden administration really prioritized yesterday.
It's disturbing. I personally believe, and I think most of the people across Montana believe, that anytime that you take a child and you subject them to this type of surgery or treatment, that the people that are responsible for it should be charged with child abuse. I really believe it is that simple. We've had people come before us in the Veterans Affairs Committee and tell us that the likelihood of folks suffering with some type of mental illness or even taking their own lives because of suicide is 40% greater risk of someone that is a transgender. And yet we continue to promote and try to bring these individuals into the military. I had a general sit here in my office, and he will remain unnamed, and told me that when I asked him about his recruitment efforts, how they were going when this was beginning to be a top priority for the military, that we were bringing a lot of broken individuals into service right now. And I think that the people across our country want our service members to be completely focused on their mission, which is to defend this nation. And anything that distracts from that is just that, a distraction. And they're not doing their best to protect us.
That's really well said, but I'm going to move on to another topic with you. President Biden yesterday announced he's going to release more than 180 million barrels of oil from the United States Strategic Reserve. Is that the right move?
It is not. What you're going to see is a small drop in the cost of gasoline at the pumps, where we've been seeing it increase to the tune of 40, 50, 60% since the time that Biden took office. The big problem is that he stopped taking the leases and putting them out to offer so that our oil and gas development companies could continue to expand their opportunities to drill wells. And the permits that they currently have, or that they're waiting for, so the leases that they currently have that they're trying to get permits issued on, he's been slow walking those permits. In addition to that, we all know that on the very first day of his administration, that he canceled the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. And while the left doesn't like us to continue to bring that up, it's just a fact, and you can't hide facts. And the Keystone XL pipeline would have brought 800,000 barrels a day of crude oil into our country, most of it from Canada, true, but 100 to 150,000 barrels a day of that crude would have been generated in North Dakota and Montana in the Bakken oil fields. So it would have been partially domestic as well. And that one item by itself would have filled or taken the load that we were losing from the 600,000 barrels of crude oil that we've been importing from Russia. So we stopped that importation, and the Keystone XL pipeline alone would have been able to fill that void.
The Strategic Reserve is a great national asset, and it was created to deal with national emergencies. Is this a national emergency, or is this a political emergency?
It's a political emergency, and it's been a self-inflicted problem, Joseph. Again, the president and this administration have taken action since the day they took office to limit the supply. The cost of crude oil is based on the global supply and demand. We're consuming about 100 million barrels a day, and that is around the world. The United States consumes about 21 million barrels a day. At the time Biden took office, we were producing 13 million barrels a day. And right now, that production has dropped down to about 11 million barrels a day. So the short math tells you we are producing 2 million barrels a day less crude oil here in our country, which means we have to go and buy it from another tyrant overseas instead of producing it right here domestically. So the president, instead of spending time trying to talk to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and Iran to please send energy to us, should be opening up the federal land so that we can begin leasing them and start issuing those permits that are tied up right now that they're slow walking, so that our oil and gas companies can continue this production.
Congressman Rosendale, about a minute left, but you think you've teased this. The president asks for new ideas. You have one. Tell us about the Restore Onshore Energy Production Act that you introduced yesterday.
Joseph, this is simply going to put back into place something that should have been done, and quite frankly, that the courts have ordered the president to do. And that is for each quarter for the president to allow those federal lands to be leased, to put them out and put the offer up so that it's 8 Western states that it comprises, but any other states that possibly would have that potential as well to be able to begin leasing those properties again. Once we begin leasing those properties again, then it's going to be up to Congress to also put the pressure on the permitting agencies to make sure that they stop slow walking the permits so we can get our production back up again. It takes quite some time to go from leasing a property to developing the field, making sure that you can actually produce, and then to get the wells drilled and begin producing that oil. We are way beyond time that these leases need to be opened back up again, and that's exactly what this legislation will do.
And the time, I think you're right, and I think America agrees with you. The time is now. The world we live in makes it imperative that we don't depend on the rest of the world to be able to get our power. Congressman Matt Rosendale, thank you so much for your time and your efforts on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joseph.